Hello, my name is Warner Huh. I'm the 2013 program chair for this year's annual meeting for the Society of Gynecologic Oncologists in Los Angeles, California. With me today is Dr. Neil Sood from MD Anderson, who chairs the Cancer Research and the Foundation Awards through the Foundation of Women's Cancer. Today we're very pleased to present you an update of what we think are some important groundbreaking abstracts presented at this year's meeting in LA. I think they'll be of interest, obviously, to women who are living with cancer, plus those who have been affected by cancer just in general. And so I thought we'd just start off talking about some of these abstracts, Neil.
Sounds great. Thanks very much. One of the first studies we would like to discuss with you today relates to a study that came out of the Gynecologic Oncology group. So this is a large group that has investigators from many centers around the country. In this particular study, they looked at the effects of chemotherapy on cognition or cognitive processes. What that means is it looks at things such as how quickly people can process their thoughts and memory and things like that. So these are things that we talk about all the time related to what some patients refer to as having, quote, chemo brain. Well, this is one of the first studies that really looks at that in a very, very formal way and tries to get at what the real effects of chemotherapy are on how people function on a day-to-day basis, and how in the future then we can come up with strategies to block or overcome some of these kind of side effects that tend to occur. So this is a very important study that's being presented at this meeting.
It's interesting. There was an abstract that was presented that looks at the risk of cancer in endometrial cancer survivors. So endometrial cancer is by far the most common malignancy that we deal with in this country, and a lot of these patients will survive from their cancer just from surgery and some additional treatment after that. And what this study looked at, and it was conducted in the Bronx at Montefiore Medical Center, is really what is the risk of developing a secondary malignancy and whether or not their personal family history has a role in that. In essence, what they were very surprised to learn is that a lot of these women were at fact risk for a secondary malignancy, including GI cancers, colon cancers, breast cancer, and ovarian cancer. And clearly there's an additional need for screening in these patients. So just because you have a long-term survivor for endometrial cancer doesn't mean that that patient doesn't have to be worried about a secondary malignancy.
The next study comes by Racconi and colleagues, so from South Alabama as well as from Arizona. Ovarian cancer remains one of the deadliest cancers, and detecting it early has been a challenge. So these investigators have taken a new approach where they collect fluid from the cervix and vagina, and they focus on identifying biomarkers that would be present in the fluid secretions of individuals with cancer. So the hope would be that you could develop non-invasive tests for picking up cancer rather than simply waiting for symptoms or other findings to develop. So again, an important step forward in terms of developing new biomarkers for ovarian cancer detection.
Well, actually, there's another abstract by Dr. Racconi, and Dr. Racconi is down at the University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama, and this was also another GOG-type study that looked at racial disparities as it relates to endometrial cancer recurrence. And what we know in this country is that there is a known disparity in terms of racial differences in women who are diagnosed with endometrial cancer in terms of survival and their risk of recurrence. But the problem is that when we look at race, it's not as easy as saying as someone is black, Asian, or white. And there's this concept of racial admixture. And what Dr. Racconi and others did is look at some specific genetic markers to predict whether or not you can essentially predict the risk of recurrence. And in his study, based off of one of the Gynecologic Oncology Group or GOG trials, determined that these markers can be specifically used to predict recurrence. So I think this is a major advance in understanding disparity work and a much better job in terms of scientifically defining racial disparities.
The next study is by McCarroll and von Groningen and other colleagues from Cleveland, Ohio. We know that being overweight or obesity plays a role in development of uterine cancer, and we also know that these kind of factors can play a role in how these women do in the long run. So these investigators took a new approach where they looked at both diet-based and also exercise-based interventions to try to curb obesity or being overweight after cancer treatment. And in some of their initial results, there are some promising directions that came out of this. And again, moving forward, for many of the cancers, we know that while the conventional treatments are very important, but so are the lifestyle or modifying the risk factors for these cancers as well. And this is, again, an important step forward in that direction.
And if you want to talk about the research program at the Foundation for Women's Cancer, Neil? Or?
Sure, absolutely. So the Foundation for Women's Cancer has offered a number of grants over the last several years, and we've offered over 90 awards so far, with about $5 million given in awards. Now, this program has been particularly successful. Over 90% of the investigators who have been funded continue to stay in research. Moreover, this initial investment of around $5 million with these seed or starter grants has been parlayed into about a 23-fold return on that investment. So many of these investigators have gone on to get additional funding from federal or other sources, and they've been very productive. There have been well over 300 publications that have come out of this kind of work. So the research work continues to expand. It's been productive, it's been successful, and we look forward to this kind of work expanding even further.
Well, thanks, Neil. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.